companies that are adopting AI, it's not much. I think the adoption rate is still going up.
Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Analytics India Magazine podcast Simulated Reality featuring the members from the AIM Leaders Council. Today we have with us Suresh Chintada. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Subex. While he's the Chief Technology Officer, we are going to talk a philosophical subject, that is trust. And how his company or other companies building AI or other emerging technologies are working to build trust. So Suresh, trust has always been important in any businesses or any kind of this thing. How does trust in AI system or other emerging technologies are different than this thing, and why are they important? What make them different than other trust?
Okay. First of all, thank you, Kashyap. Thank you, AIM, for inviting me for this podcast. It's my pleasure to be here. Hopefully, we will have a conversation on understanding trust a little bit better. As you rightly said, trust is a complex and a fascinating subject, right? And applying the trust to AI, I think it makes it even more interesting for me because we are in the business of building AI tools, and we're very closely looking at the emergence of other research topics in this space, right? So why is it difficult? I think that was the question.
Why is it difficult? Why is it different? Is it the same or?
Okay, so if you have to look at the basic premise on which trust is built, right? Trust is very fundamental to human existence, right? What you don't trust, you don't adopt, you don't accept, right? And what happens in the case of, whether it's any product, any service that you get, I think only when you trust, I think you start seeing that product or service getting adopted very well and accepted very well, right? AI is no different from that perspective, right? AI is new to the land, at least in the case of enterprises trying to adopt it. AI as such is not a new technology. AI has been around for more than 50 years, right? But I think we are trying to adopt AI for our day-to-day lives, and we are already seeing a lot of AI-induced applications that run our life today, right? When you hail a Uber taxi, I think how the Uber is trying to locate you and send you a ride is all based on an AI that is running behind a Uber, right? Or when you book an Airbnb, the way it's trying to allocate room for you is again based on an algorithm that is running behind the AI system that is within that. But how do you know whether that Airbnb or Uber that you're using is being unbiased about how they're providing the service to you, right? In fact, a recent incident that was reported about Uber is Uber seems to provide better services in white dominated areas in certain countries, right? Very similar to another report which talks about Airbnb itself, which says Airbnb doesn't give you a better location if your social profile or if your Instagram profile seems to be dubious, right? So the AI system that is sitting behind these companies are actually taking these decisions to segregate humans, right? And that's an issue, right? So it's important to understand what goes behind whatever we're calling as an AI system, and understand that before we start talking about what we can do with that AI system. So yeah, so trust becomes again fundamental for believing what the AI system is able to provide.
Correct. And I think one of the things is that while trust in systems or businesses was crucial, the implications of trust with AI are very high. Because this is not one-on-one trust, right? There is something much more than that. What happens when this trust is not there? So we talked about why is it important?
Sure.
What goes wrong when it comes?
What happens when there is no trust in the AI systems? Oh, that's a good question. I think let me give a little bit of a background in terms of what we are trying to build as a business, right? I think we all understand consumer side AI applications more than anything else. On the enterprise side, according to McKinsey, I think this is going to be a 10 trillion to 15 trillion business in the next decade, right? If you look at companies that are adopting AI, it's not much. I think the adoption rate is still going up, but it is not much. But the companies which have adopted AI, in a right sense, for example, have already started seeing financial benefits out of that adoption, right? And several companies are investing in this technology. So what happens when you do not trust AI systems is that all of those investments will go to waste, the wasteland, right? And if you do not do a good job of getting those AI systems into your production, for example, right? Then you would have all that investment, as is rightly said, would go nowhere. And trust is that means that once you lose trust, I think it's very difficult to build it back. So it's very important to start building right from the beginning. So the impact, if you ask me, would be lack of business, would be loss of investment, loss of ROI, and a delayed adoption of the AI systems.
Yeah, but that's from the enterprise side of thing, right?
Sure.
So, for instance, even people who are using AI
Sure.
or being exposed to AI, they are not aware of it, right? And that's also another pillar of trust. So, for instance, if I am using Airbnb, as you said, and it is recommending or putting pricing according to its AI algorithms, and I am not aware of it, yeah, right? Digital literacy is something an entirely different topic. But then, is that aspect also very important? And what happens when people don't know about it itself? Forget trusting it. They don't know in the place that they have to trust something. So then that's also another aspect of it, right? From a consumer side of things.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think today we take a lot of these things for granted, right? I think once you start trusting Airbnb as a brand, you think whatever they do, makes sense, is in the right interest of you, right? Unfortunately, today, Kashyap, we don't have enough guidelines that are available within the industry to tell you, which system is trustworthy, which is not trustworthy. It's like energy ratings on your electrical systems, right? Once you see the stars on the energy right, what is the level at which I think the particular utility will work. We don't have anything similar to that in the AI system. So it becomes difficult. It becomes very opaque, whatever AI systems are there. So once you do not understand what is going inside that, if you look at the overall AI life cycle, right, we're talking about the data that gets fed into training those the ML models that you're building, right? The design of the ML models itself, the kind of algorithms you use, right? And once you design those, once you train those models, putting them in a production, right? And once they're in production, sustaining those models across, and the models, sustaining models would mean that you need to continue to update based on the data that you are seeing in the real time. All these aspects in the AI life cycle, I think, need to be managed. Today, there is opaqueness everywhere. You don't know what the engineer has picked as an algorithm to use for, let's say, segregating you versus somebody else when he's allocating you that particular price on an Airbnb allocation, right?
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Yeah, that's also another thing, right? Like a lot of these models, there's a lot of human intervention in it. When the decision making is not just technology, there's a lot of human. So parameterization, right? The weightage to parameterization. Who decides that? Why do they decide? Why do they make a certain decision? Is that just, are there guidelines to it? If there are no guidelines to it until now, then what do you do? So that's also one aspect of it. And the other thing is that when after this model is built, I think measuring trust is a very tricky aspect, right? How do you measure a trust? Like, let's say I'm doing good business with 10 clients, but whom do I trust more, right? And or I'm doing business with 10 vendors, and whom do I trust the best? I can put a score based on my thing, but when it comes to AI, the problem itself is so complex,
right,
that this thing. So what is there a framework for it? Is there some kind of this? How have you developed it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think when you look at as you rightly said, it's complex. It's complex. So where do you start, right?
Where do you start?
So I think I would say the first thing, there are two aspects to this. One is the producer of the AI system. The one is the consumer of the AI system, right? what we are trying to put together is a framework for the producer of the AI systems, the ML models, to ask questions, right? So when you talk about responsible AI or ethical AI, these are all part of the same, discussion thread. When you talk about a trustworthiness, right? So when you're talking about that, you're essentially looking at three things, right? Fundamentally, you're looking at how, how is the system working, right? What are you building the system with? You know that, when you put a model together, you are looking for an accuracy today, right? I think what should go beyond accuracy is what are the algorithms that are using to build that model, okay? What inputs are required to produce the output that the AI model is giving you, right? I think it's important to ask those questions at a fundamental level, right? Both at the consumer level as well as a producer level, right? The producer level, you should ask these questions right at the beginning of your problem formulation, so that the data that you're seeking to train that model that you're building comes with a lack of bias, comes with a quality data that comes in, so that you're picking the right data sets, and you're picking the data sets within a tolerance that you're expecting to work on, right? And you have to do that at every stage of the AI life cycle, not at once you build a model, you don't ask this question, because that's too late, it becomes too expensive to refactor and rebuild the whole stuff. On the consumer side, I think what you should be asking is, okay, have you taken into consideration my safety and security, right? Have you taken into consideration, the human in the middle aspect of it? In fact, Stanford has this, I think it's a center, it's a COE, I don't remember, but they have this human-centered AI,
Correct.
right? They're trying to, essentially they're trying to state that you cannot have an AI system all by itself, right? You need to have a human element that needs to mandate, that needs to basically say how the system will be used, and so human in the middle becomes very, very critical for this. And European Commission has come out with the guidelines, right, which talks about, which we also use as what we call as a STAR framework, right? The safety and security, right? Transparency of the AI models that you're using. Who is accountable, for this system when it fails? And is it built robust enough? Are the algorithms that are built, if in that model are robust enough to take any inconsistencies in the data that is coming in? Apart from these four pillars, what we call as part of the framework, the European Commission also is looking at three other things, which is very interesting. They say that, human-centered or human management becomes very, very important, right? Basically what they're saying is you cannot take a decision without having a human touch point in the entire ecosystem. The second thing they talk about is diversity and inclusion. Is your data set diverse? Is it inclusive enough? And the third thing they talk about is what is the societal implication of this AI system? It has to be a positive implication on society.
Which you told me about several organizations that have worked on frameworks and this thing, but one thing was common, that everybody said that there needs to be a human element to it, a human touch. Until now, no AI, they say that even if you take some of the smartest AI, it's not, more cognitive than a dog, right? Which is a whole another debate which we can have. But
I don't think it even comes near to a dog's cognitiveness. Yeah.
But the point
insulting
that
the dog, right.
But yeah, that's true. The point that I'm trying to make is that, these humans, and you also mentioned that we need to touch upon or ask on the fundamentals of this, fundamental of human behavior, right? And you told me several frameworks that are used, let's say by Stanford and this by your company or any other enterprises in India building these models. Are technologists by themselves capable of doing this? Do they understand the fundamental? Do they understand the academia or the research behind human behavior, or there needs to be another stakeholder in the conversation?
I think it's a great question. So far, I think you've seen, I think the maturity of AI in the last decade has been tremendous, right? It is still an engineer's game at this point of time, right?
But should it be?
Well, today that's how it is. What is getting realized, I think what is becoming very clear is that there should be a there should be a larger emphasis on how the engineers are building these models, right? Hence the debate discussion in terms of asking the right question, in terms of forming the frameworks. If you ask me, do we have a framework that is universal? Not yet, right? So there's still a part of it is research, part of it is still evolving. But I would think that in the next decade, right, I think we would have, we would probably have something like a GDPR, which has come and changed the way, the way I think the world looks at data protection, privacy, right? Something of the sort will have to come in to guide how the AI systems will have to be developed and how trustworthiness in AI systems can be established.
Correct. But then again, so so my question was that are technologists enough? So is there
not enough?
Not enough.
To
right?
answer the question, not enough.
But
I think we need to bring into the room other people.
So who are these other people?
I mean, the social psychologists,
okay,
right? People who have done philosophy,
yeah,
right? Who've studied human evolution, perhaps anthropologists.
Have you
right?
Have you at Subex hired these people?
See, Subex is trying to build the tools which need to be used by some of our vendors, right? I mean, some of our customers.
But you do need then these social scientists,
yeah,
right?
so,
or ethicists.
Yeah, so one of the things we are trying to do is, see, when you're building a system, right? I will put a system because models are, slightly more granular, right? When you're building a system, the system also will have to reflect your overall ethics and values of the company that you're leading. It's no more different from that, right? If it's a company you're valuing, let's say, diversity, you need to ensure that your system that you're building should also inculcate that. So we do involve in our internal reviews our diversity team to come and see whether the data that we're pulling in is inclusive enough.
Your diversity team means?
Yeah, we have a team that is part of the HR team.
Okay, so diversity is brought in terms of their profession or their who they are?
No, diversity in terms of the profession.
Their profession.
Yeah.
Okay, which is
basically one of the key tenets that we have at Subex, that we need to be more inclusive organization, and so it's an initiative that we're running for the last 2 years, right? Yeah. It's again a change management thing, right, Kashyap?
Yeah. One of the things I've spoken with a lot of leaders now, right, in terms of them building this AI governance models, these trust models, but there is, and it's not a fault of them. They are running, they are building a technology, and the first, without a technologist there is no technology. You need to hire a first technologist. But I have never, got an answer that yes, we hire an AI ethicist or we hire a specialist or a social scientist. And I think it's the priorities, right? In the end, everybody is working on a budget. Nobody has this thing. Do you think it's just a budget thing, or is it just like or we are still at a very premature stage when we are building this? Because if we are developing something that gives a framework on ethical values like trust,
sure,
right? We should have ethicists. Then what is stopping these technology companies? Is there a resource crunch, or is there the technology is still premature? What is it, do you think?
So, to answer that question, Kashyap, I don't think it is a question of a budget, right?
It's not. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more a question of appreciation of the fact that you require these skills in the room, right?
Okay.
Fundamentally, I mean, a lot of companies are investing in AI systems, and my fear is that I think you're investing in AI because it's a fad. You're investing in AI because it is more appeasing to an investor who's coming in, or doing because everybody else is trying to do, right? I would still want to go back and ask the companies and the boards and their executive leadership, do you really understand what you're trying to do here, right? And if you understand what you're trying to do here, what is the care that you're taking to make those systems more responsible? And to make those systems more responsible, what kind of a teams that you need to put together? I think once you start having the debate, Kashyap, in the boardrooms, I think this will be sorted. Also on the supply side of it, right? We are beginning to see a lot of universities, colleges at least starting to have this AI ethics built into the overall coursework. We don't have that built in today, but I think on the supply side also we need to start seeing some of those things.
I'm glad that you said that it's not a budget issue, because I think that it's important that organizations building AI realize that they are making a lot of money, they're also spending a lot of money.
As I said, you know, companies which have successfully done it have already started seeing uptick in their revenue maximization.
Yeah, they are, and so now we are scaling it as well. It was not just, and you said it's a fad, and like we are moving away from those fads, and it is having real world implications.
It's having a real world impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that these conversations around, in technology companies should revolve around hiring more people, and I really hope going forward there are people who are experts in this field are included in the conversations, because if we start deploying scalable AI models without hiring them first, the implications are going to be much worse than products like plastic, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, I think very interesting analogy there, but yes, I would think that would be something. I'm sure the big web scalers have already thought about this. They're building these things, and then the companies which have actually seeing a benefit out of this, I'm thinking, should they appreciate this fact that they need to bring in this kind of a talent. But I think we're not talking about the early adopters, right? We're talking about the next mass, and they need to start looking at it as well. But I think once you build the systems much more responsibly, I think we'll have hopefully we'll have a better AI systems that will not try to kill humans at some point.
With that hope of surviving an AI takeover, I would like to thank you for coming to the podcast.
Thanks, Kashyap. Wonderful having this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.